Hello and welcome back to the channel. We've got the finals of the Wave 2 3v3 Autumn Championships. The first major event streamed from OP09 has been super fun to watch. I'm very excited for this final. If you see these two teams right here, you've got Team A. They've got Black Yellow Luffy, Doflamingo, and a Purple Luffy. What I would consider to be like 3 of the top 4 decks in the format. And then over on the other side, the blue team, you got Doflamingo Lucci, which is arguably the second best deck in the format with Doflamingo, and then Bonney. We saw the strength of Jewelry Bonney in the last match, and it looks like we are going to be able to see it again in this one. That's the matchup that we're going to see here today. We're going to see the Bonney that we saw in last one, see how it goes up against Black Yellow Luffy, which is an interesting matchup that I think a lot of people are already aware of, right? Have seen many times before because of, you know, both decks being around for a little bit, and we have both of the deck lists, so I'll make sure to show you those in the video as well. Do not worry, I've got the exact deck list. And so players drawing their hands, looks like Black Yellow Luffy right here is going to get his hand first, and then Bonney over on the right side getting their hand. I think maybe Black Yellow Luffy is going first in this one. I don't know officially yet, but usually the tendencies that they have on this live stream, the production, means that Black Yellow Luffy is going first in this one because they showed him first. But if you're wondering how I'm watching this, I'm watching the official VOD that you can find in the link in the description below to the video. I don't own the rights to this or anything like that. I just want to bring you unique official or unofficial, I hope it's official someday, unique unofficial English commentary of these championships in case, you know, you don't know exactly what's happening and you need someone to help you out, you know, in English, because I don't understand Japanese either, so it helps me out a ton. And if you just want to watch some future formats, so looks like Bonney in this starting hand, it looks like they're shuffling up their deck right now. Maybe it's cutting the opponent's deck. I was like, why are they shuffling their hand? But their hand got 2 8-drop Eustace Captain Kids. Could be interesting in this matchup to see those, as well as a Bonney Searcher, a Capone Beige. That 1-drop from the old starter decks is something that we've seen kind of come back in this Bonney list and be a 4 of in this deck, surprisingly. And then the Cavendish being such an instrumental card to a lot of game plans. So looks like Luffy's keeping their life after that, or keeping their hand after that mulligan, putting in their life, and we'll see how this goes with the hand that they've got. And so is going to be in here a Garp Hiyori, nice 2k counter right there in that Hiyori, a Rocket Luffy, a Kuzan, and a Ace. So Kuzan is going to definitely be interesting. I think we're going to really see exactly what goes on with that guy, because especially with the when attacking, that -4 could be huge. But is the Bonney going to let that happen through the leader effect? That's what is going to be interesting about this one. And so in this going off, it's going to be the Bonney going first. Actually, I was wrong about that. So the Bonney does have some 1-Dawn plays. We saw in the last game playing that Jewelry Bonney Searcher early and going to be doing the same thing there. The Black Yellow Luffy now on the 2-Dawn turn does find a Flampe, so does have the opportunity to not only do some searching, but also some self-inflicting on the life, right? Trying to get themselves to awaken, because a lot of strategies we see from opponents into Black Yellow Luffy is they don't really swing at first because they want to force you to utilize a lot of your 2Ks that you've got in your deck to be able to awaken, which are vital resources really, in my opinion. So gonna use this Garp first, see exactly what they can grab. They can grab an Ace, Sabo, or Luffy, and so got a couple different options. You got a baby Ace and a baby Luffy, which are very good, right? Because you've got both of those big bodies in hand. But a blocker Sabo is also in there. So blocker Sabo being so good for this game plan could be really nice in response to the 9-drop Shanks that we saw in the last game, but decide to grab the Luffy. Really wants to do that evolution through the Rocket Luffy from OP07 and maybe do a couple of those. Could be very strong. So passing over to Bonney into the 3-Dawn turn is going to go ahead and spin that Searcher and look at the top 5 for a Supernova type card. I think the only Supernova type card they could find is another Bonney right there. All of those being Don Quixote Pirates type cards. This engine, this deck being pretty much half Supernova and half Don Quixote Pirates. So going to be interesting to see. Probably going to be playing this down and going ahead and spinning with it, not leaving any Dawn open, but is going to be doing some moving around to try to find some key pieces in this deck. So making sure that you only grab 5, right? You don't want to grab 6. That would be cheating. Is going to find a 2K counter right here. So this Supernova is going to grab that. You kind of want to see maybe like another Cavendish or something like that. Could be really good, but you can't complain too much about a 2K counter because you do have 3 non-counter cards in the hand. So is going to go ahead and pass off the turn, is going to move into a 4-Dawn turn for the Luffy, and is going to find a blocker Sabo. So a really good card to find off the top deck, especially after you passed one up in the Garp search. So is going to at first swing into these Bonnies, just take out your searchers with the little guys. So is going to go ahead, take out both of them, right? No Dawn open for the Bonney, so could go ahead and just clear those two, and is going to go ahead and play the Kuzan. So the Kuzan, very nice to see, is probably going to be really helpful, as I was mentioning on curve, because Bonney can't really rest that Kuzan, right? So especially if the Kuzan is the first thing to swing, it's probably going to get -4 on a character at some point or another. So going to be interesting to see how this Bonney responds. First is going to take out that Garb, doesn't want it on the field to potentially take out more characters, and is going to go ahead, use that Cavendish, bring up 2 Dawn, leave 1 open for the leader effect, maybe play this Capone down, I would say, but opts to not do that at this point in the game. So is going to pass off to the Black Yellow Luffy, going to get a card and 2 more Dawn. Does top deck a 5-drop power-up Luffy, the one that takes a life, draws a card, and boosts it up by 2,000 power. Could actually be really cool in this matchup if we see it. It's a way to draw cards while also trying to get yourself to awaken, and is a huge menace right on the field. So could be interesting to see that played down and really give the Bonney some decisions they need to make on especially what to rest through their leader effects. So don't know if they really have they actually do. No, I don't think they have a way to be able to pop this Cavendish this turn. I was going to say you could play the Flampe, but you just don't have enough Dawn to be able to do any of those. Well, maybe you do actually. So you could use the Hiyori play. You could go Flampe, right, play 1, draw 1 card, take 1 life. You're at 3 life. Use Hiyori to put the Rocket Luffy in the top life, right? That is only 3 Dawn used. You still have 3 Dawn left. You can go ahead and swing with the Kuzan to -4 on the Cavendish to put it at a 1 cost, and your leader will get rested, but that's not too big of a deal. And then you can use that baby Luffy to go up to 7,000 power, right? And go down to 2 life on the evolution and pop that Cavendish. Cavendish being an important part of the game plan. So, but is not going to do that. I think that's a little bit too costly. I think your resources are a little bit more valuable. So going to instead go at this kind of almost slower pace, I will say, and is going to play that 5 down. So we'll see if they end up using that Luffy effect from starter deck 13. It looks like they are going to. Now remember, proper sequencing, you have to draw a life, then trash a life, and then gain that 2,000 power. So that Luffy is going to stay up at 8,000 power if anybody decides to swing into it or anything like that. Probably a really good card for this deck and in this matchup specifically, because you can have a raw 8,000 power swing at times into something like Eustace Captain Kidd that comes on the field, that card being a menace to a lot of different decks. So is going to play something down real quick, going to spin this baby 5, try to find a Don Quixote card, maybe looking for something like the 10-drop, right? 10-drop Doflamingo, although we didn't see in the last game, is in this search and is a very, very good card in this deck. Is looking like what they're going to grab, not really having any other boss monsters, I think, in this hand besides like the Eustace Captain Kidd, right? But you do want that Doflamingo to be able to rest the Luffy leader, especially when it can get to 11,000 power swings every single turn. So is going to be using 1 for this Capone and just passing off the turn right there, not really wanting to do anything else with the Dawn, so is going to move on into the next turn. Did leave some Dawn open, but a little bit awkward of not really knowing what they wanted to use on the game plan. So is, especially with that blocker, going to kind of provide some weird interactions, right? Do you utilize that to pop the Luffy, or is it going to block a swing? Who knows? But after drawing that card, getting that baby Luffy and also an Ivankov blocker as well, is going to be curious of what they decide to do on this one. And so looking around, I think they're at 8 Dawn now at this point. With 8 Dawn, you can kind of start doing some movement if you want to, maybe start doing some swings at times. Your Luffy could put you at 2 life and be an 8k swing. That goes ahead. You can go ahead then at 2 life and play something like the Rocket Luffy, right? Rocket Luffy would be able to KO a different character on the field, but is going to go ahead and swing that Kuzan first. Like I was mentioning, you know, Kuzan swinging first is going to go ahead and do that minus cost that I mentioned. So is going to be swinging at that baby 5, I believe, and is going to be resting that power up Luffy. Definitely a good idea. Is going to take that knockout and put the Cavendish at 1, probably prioritizing KOing that Cavendish, like I was mentioning earlier with that Rocket Luffy. Does still have the leader to be able to swing with on this 8 Dawn turn right here, and you've got a little bit to work with in your hand. We'll see exactly what they want to do. You could go ahead and do the Ivankov Rocket Luffy combo. That might be something that you do, and using that Luffy effect anyways to be able to get some cards as well and get closer to Awakening. That Rocket Luffy may be what's coming down on there after drawing that card. So you would be only swinging a 5 with the leader, but you would be able to draw a card, establish a nice blocker on the field, and potentially either get a life or get a nice counter card out of this Bonney's hand, or maybe prompt the Capone block. But definitely want to use that 5. Looks like is for that Rocket Luffy. Is going to be able, since you're at 2 life, to use its effect to pop and kill the Cavendish. And after doing that as well, you draw a card. So very, very nice. Kind of an unconditional draw, right? It's not like you have to have no more than 4 in hand or something like that with that. So swinging this 5, I think definitely shows that they're going to be playing this Ivankov in the turn. Is going to go ahead, take that life, go down to 4. And that Ivankov is going to be able to manipulate the top of their life, right? You can replace the top of the life with a 5 cost brother. So could be something that we see with an evolution in the next turn. That might be a game plan that they go with as that Ivankov comes down onto the field. But opting to not do the on play effect with the Ivankov. So deciding, you know what, I like what's in my hand. I don't have too many options on these 5-drop characters. I'm just going to keep where I'm at right now, maximize the amount of cards that I have in hand, because eventually this Bonney is going to have to swing. So especially with nothing on the board right now, we'll see what this Bonney decides to do. Is going to go ahead, play another Cavendish. One goes down, another comes up in here. And so 2 Dawn is going to get refreshed. Cavendish, and so attaching a couple to the Bonney is going to go ahead and block with the Ivankov. Is going to be able to get that knockout on the block. And so with 1 Dawn left open, they're going to utilize some Dawn, maybe play a character. We'll see exactly what they decide to play right here. I was a little bit distracted by a cat trying to knock something over on the side. I missed it, but is going to be doing 1 for another Capone. So after getting a second Capone beige, is going to go ahead and put that on the field, maybe some key blocks in the coming turns, and the card is going to get drawn. It looks like it was a Hiyori, so something that you can really utilize, I feel like, at this point, unless you want to, right? With some evolutions, you could go ahead, play the Hiyori to do an evolution, right? Manipulate the top of your life, maybe get a Sabo down on the field, because that Luffy is going to be able to get the other life, right? And then at the 10 Dawn turn, you can go ahead and do some manipulating with your life as well. Now as well, with the Gecko in hand, your future turns are going to have some different options inside of it, right? A lot of people telling me with black yellow Luffy, your first turn that you do some power-ups, that you do some awakening, right? You want to do it with the babies from hand, right? You kind of want to utilize your geckos at different times. It's not always use them right away, right? Because you definitely want to have them in trash, and it's much easier to get them in trash when you do the first evolutions from hand. So we'll see exactly what this player decides to do. Still about 17 and a half minutes in this match that we've got going on right here. Splitting the Dawn up 5-5-4 maybe something that they try to do. So go ahead and use that Luffy effect first. Got to draw one and then trash one life, as we see again and again. Gonna be a Rocket Luffy, so could be able to, if they wanted, put 2 Rocket Luffys in life. They only have 1 baby Luffy in the hand though, so I don't know if you would exactly do that, but could be something that we see either on the Flampe that gets played right here, that could be played to be able to take the last life and draw some cards. He's going to go ahead and swing this Kuzan first. I think especially with the Kuzan as the Bonney player, you know that this Cavendish is going to go down, right? Doing that -4, putting that Cavendish at a 1 cost is going to go ahead and rest the Luffy right there, that character Luffy, and is going to go ahead take another 5k swing. And it's going to be a carrot. Carrot, very nice. We saw in the last game. Might be really nice here as well to be able to free something like Kuzan on the field. Wouldn't surprise me if that was a game plan going into the next turn, but is going to go ahead and potentially use a leader effect here soon. You still have to get rid of 1 more life, so I think Flampe is the option that you do, and it looks like resting 1 right there is going to go ahead and use that Flampe. Flampe being able to draw 1 and take 1 life from the top of your life is going to be very nice to be able to not only add 2 cards to your hand, right, have a gigantic hand, but go into your leader effect in this next turn. So gotta have to pitch a card off of this, so we'll see what card they pitch. Probably going to be a 5-cost character that they want to play off of one of the babies in their hand. Really leaning towards the ace right now. The ace may be nice to put a little bit of pressure, get rid of some of these Capones potentially, right? Because a raw 7k swing, if they're already taking 5s, they're either gonna have to give up some counter cards or what? Or use the block. So, but instead maybe goes a little bit more the patient route with the Sabo. Going to be a draw 2, trash 2. So trashing that ace as the first one. We'll see what they trash off of the second one. It looks like another Rocket Luffy. 3 of them now in trash. Gonna go ahead and use that leader effect. Going to pitch 1 card in hand. Looks like it's going to be the search event. At this point, you definitely probably want to do a non-counter card or something to help you set up in your stuff. You don't have any 5-cost Sabos in the trash, so this option of the 5-cost Sabo could be good right here, and is going to go ahead, as the cat is climbing the bed on the side of my office, scared me a little bit. Gonna put the Luffy on top and the Sabo down and under below, and so using that Luffy effect to go in and draw a card, KO that Cavendish. Going to be a 7,000 power leader, and then with the Dawn attached to it, a 9,000 power leader. So is going to go ahead, maybe do a little bit of defense, right? Choosing the Sabo instead of the ace, and is going to go ahead and swing 9 right here. This 9 is going to go ahead and go at life. Going to really have some options, right? Going to have to decide, and it looks like deciding to take the life. Going to be another 2k in the hand, so you're really stacking up some 2ks in your hand, but you also have a considerable amount of non-counter, right? 2 uses Captain Kids, 1 Carrot, 1 Doflamingo, and now a Hody Jones as well on top of that. Hody Jones, great as a finishing card in this game, but on this turn specifically is probably not your best option, just because the only other things that you have to attack with are the Bonney and the Capones, which you can't swing with them all. The leader is a 7,000 power leader, and on this 5k swing is going to go ahead, get the Sabo, and thinking about getting the Doflamingo, resting 3 different characters down at this point, establishing a 10,000 power body. Definitely want to do the Kuzan, because the Kuzan is going to be huge. Doing the power up Luffy, and looks like leader Luffy as well, so leaving that Sabo alone. Definitely no harm in swinging with the leader, even if you know off of this play they are going to just go ahead and block, but still for formalities, which actually they didn't have to block with. Oh, they might have swung the 5 at the Kuzan. I might have missed that actually. The 5 at the Kuzan makes sense of why you would block with the Sabo, but the 5 into the 7K leader doesn't make sense. So that makes a ton of sense, actually. So moving now into the black yellow Luffy's turn. Gonna have a couple Rocket Luffys now still in the discard. Could do some power-ups if you want. You've got 3 geckos in hand, I believe. So back to, or at least 2 geckos. So back-to-back geckos could be coming down. And with Kuzan and the Luffy frozen might be something that they do. Thinking about swinging 6. Actually on here, you do know that if you don't get any more Sabos down, a Hody Jones would rest the Sabo anyways, so maybe it's not a bad idea to get this extra swing in, right? We know that the Bonney player does have a Hody Jones, but obviously our Black Yellow Luffy player does not have that information. They know that they play the Hody Jones, but not necessarily that they've got one in hand right now. So gonna go ahead and swing 6 in here, maybe saying, you know what, I feel like it's gonna get rested anyways, so might as well get it out of the way right now. And especially because you have another one coming out on the way potentially from your life, is gonna go ahead and take that with that Bonney being the card to grab. And so thinking about what they want to play right now, what could be a good option, is going to go ahead play this Gecko. So with the Gecko, 8 Dawn being utilized is going to replace the Flampe and something else. Looks like it's going to be that blocker Sabo right there to get two cost characters, I believe. So is going to grab Luffy and Sabo, no ace at this point. And then with the rest of the 2 Dawn, presumably going to use leader effect after they resolve this blocker Sabo draw to trash 2. So grabbing a Kuzan off that, Kuzan, a very easy card to pitch right now. You're trying to get rid of counter cards, I think, out of your deck, is going to go ahead and put them both there. And then with the 2 Dawn attached to the leader, going to go ahead and use the leader effect. Now, we can't swing this turn, which is very nice. You're not going to get an 11,000 power swing coming at your face, but is going to go ahead, pitch that other Sabo baby right there. We may have seen that other Sabo baby pitch for the next turn on the next Gecko, but is going to put 2 Luffys in life, only planning to evolve into one of them. The other one, they said, you know what, we can get rid of this character. And we'll see if they end up popping this Luffy to be able to get rid of one of these Capone Bejays. The Capones are definitely blockers on the field that you do want to consider, right? But maybe thinking, you know what, maybe I want this as an attacker potentially. I don't have access to another 5-drop Luffy from the starter deck, right, to be able to boost power. So might as well get a Luffy while I can, while being a 9,000 power leader and putting the Bonney kind of on the ropes at this point. So going to be curious to see what this Bonney player decides to do. Going to be swinging probably 5 at Kuzan. I think at this point that might be a route that they're going with on this swing. Is going to go ahead, swing 5 at that. Could just be a block from the Sabo, but maybe trying to keep that Sabo up and forcing them to Hody Jones is the play. So gonna swing 10 at that Kuzan. Gonna be a block on that Sabo, and no other Sabos to be able to play. So it's going to be interesting. You do have a Cavendish and a Carrot, right? So you may do a situation where like you use 5 Dawn for the Carrot, stun the Kuzan, make sure it does not get active in the next turn to be able to minus a character, and then use Cavendish to restand some Dawn, but instead is going to go with the Eustace Captain Kidd, this OP01 SR. Very, very good, and definitely a card that you love to see. Is going to go ahead and play that baby 5, and with attaching 1 Dawn, going to force the Luffy player to swing into it at this point. So playing down that baby 5, maybe trying to best utilize the Dawn as possible in the next turn. If they survive off of this, the Luffy player is going to draw for the turn, find a baby or a baby Luffy right there, which is very nice. The baby Luffy could be able to evolve this Rocket Luffy right now and KO one of the Beijay blockers. So is going to be going 5 at the kid because they have to swing into it, and is going to -4 on the kid to put it at a 4 cost. Maybe something that we see right here in this next turn if they go like play the Gecko or something, or maybe the Luffy from hand, is going to go ahead and use that Luffy effect that we put on the field last turn to pop that uses Captain Kid. Now everything else going to be able to swing at life, especially when this Luffy right here on the field. If you play another baby Luffy down from hand, or maybe use a Gecko to evolve one of the babies, the Luffy is going to be able to be an 8,000 power swing for free, right? No trashing or drawing cards. So going to be curious to see what he decides to do. Looks like he's going in for another Gecko play. It seems like that might be his decision. He's got baby Luffy's in the trash, but maybe thinking about what exactly he wants to put in the trash, what exactly he wants to evolve into, right? And what he wants to put in his life off of this. Because here's the thing with Black Yellow Luffy and why it's such an interesting deck, right? Once you start doing these awakenings, you're never gaining cards at that point. You're never netting cards. You are always, every single turn, losing cards in your hand. So that's one of the reasons why, you know, you tried to see that priority of like gaining cards at certain points in the game with, you know, the Rocket Luffy, with the 5-drop power-up Luffy that we saw. And so off of the Gecko, getting rid of the Kuzan, saying, you know what, Kuzan, your job is probably done at this point, is going to go ahead, evolve into that Rocket Luffy, going to KO one of the Capone Beiges and draw a card. So going to get in Ivankov, at least has counter on it, which is very nice, and going to attach the other two to do the usual typical cycling effect, right, of going in, putting more cards in your life. So going to use that leader effect, pitch that guard, put the Sabo and Luffy just like they have through the other points of the game. Going to go ahead, use that Sabo, draw 2, trash 2 off of this Sabo. Going to go up to 9 life, finds a couple different cards, finds another baby Luffy, but is just going to go ahead and get rid of all the non-baby cards or 2Ks in the hand, which so happens to be the Garp and the 5K Luffy that they drew. So swinging 8 now with this Luffy. This 8 is going to go ahead and go at life. Going to be 2Ks right here, and this 9K swing going in as well. Going to be taking this life. Advantage seems to be on the Luffy side. It doesn't look like it's actually going to matter because looks like the blue team is actually going to win this one, but now playing for pride, right? If you see in the top left corner, the blue team winning 2 matches, so that's all you need, 2 out of the 3. But now you gotta see, can this Bonney overcome the Black Yellow Luffy, right? Black Yellow Luffy being one of the premier decks of the OP09 format. I would say up in the top 4, right? My top 4 right now, if you're curious, would be Doflamingo, Lucci, Purple Luffy, and Black Yellow Luffy. I think probably in that order, I think. And then there's a lot of other great decks as well. And so on that swing, going in with the block of the Doflamingo, is now going to go ahead and play that useless Captain Kid. Say, you know what? All right, you don't have Kuzan anymore, so I'm going to get an indirect blocker of my own in this useless Captain Kid. Force you to swing into it with your characters when one of them is definitely going to get rested. After top decking another Gecko, it's going to be pretty crazy with about 4 minutes left in this game. Can you get rid of the useless Captain Kid, though? You could be able to ramp the Luffy to be able to get some extra power, right? And we'll see how this player decides to do it. Might be something that is interesting. Maybe you don't play a Gecko at all, but you go ahead, use the Luffy that you've got in hand to be able to bring out this Rocket Luffy that you have, or maybe use the power-up Luffy, put that Rocket Luffy down at the bottom of the deck, use the leader effect to put the other starter deck Luffy that you put in your trash in the top of the life, and then you could go ahead and play the 2 babies from your hand to establish a ton more power. So maybe they're doing that right now. Going to be evolving and probably prioritizing KOing the Capone being a really good card in this matchup, it seems like. And so drawing another 2K Hiyori, looks like, off of it. My goodness, such good draws. And so going to go ahead into using this leader effect. No Gecko is going to come down this turn, but it looks like it could be a strong turn for this Luffy. And so you do have to pitch one card in the hand. Is going to pitch a baby. I don't know. Would you want to pitch a baby or would you want to pitch an Ivankov? I think maybe the baby actually makes sense because I think they might try to play the Ivankov in this turn, solidify a blocker since they're not going to get the usual Gecko 2-Don on leader combo. And so is going to go ahead and put two of those guys up in life. Going to get a Sabo baby down onto the field to be able to get that guy down. And maybe not using the Ivankov because you definitely would want to play Ivankov first, I think. And so is going to do that draw 2, trash 2. It's going to immediately put away the ace. Doesn't have counter on it. Is one of the 5 costs, so you don't even really need it in a sense. And pitched another card. I think they pitched the Ivankov in hand. So opting not to use the Ivankov, maybe using the rest of the Don to swing at this Eustace Captain Kid with no Capone Bejes as blockers. This is a 12,000 power swing, I believe, heading into your 8,000 power character. So we'll see if they counter out of this one. Is going to have to cost a lot of cards. They do have a 0 cost event in their hand and a 2K, but gonna have to be a little bit of stuff that you don't want to get rid of. Is going to go ahead, get rid of that Hody Jones. You love to see that Hody Jones go away if you're the Black Yellow Luffy and counter out of that one to keep him alive. But 3 more Don. The rest of the Don going to swing at that Eustace Captain Kid. Is going to be taking that KO, laughing away, saying, yeah, you got him. And then that 9K swing going into the life, cannot counter out of this one. And Black Yellow Luffy is going to come in as the winner of that one. I think the winning team, though, is the blue team. This team right here, the one that the Bonney lost, which is kind of really awkward because the feature match won one side, but the rest of the team kind of won on the other side. So that's kind of how these 3v3s work sometimes. So even though the Bonney player lost, they are the winners. So they did play a really good match, though, I think, and as well had a really good semifinals on top of it. So probably some pretty good stuff, I feel like, overall in this one. But don't go anywhere. We're actually going to take a look at some of the matchups from this tournament if you were curious on the top bracket, how some of these matchups went, and then also look at some decks. And so this is kind of the matchup spread from the tournament. If you're looking for the actual official bracket, this is how it went down. We saw a lot of these different feature matches, right? Like we saw this one, obviously we saw this one. But taking a look here, almost every single team playing Doflamingo, right? Doflamingo and Lucci, some of the more popular picks in this tournament. Black Yellow Luffy also being really popular as well, kind of rivaling, hopefully I said that right, rivaling Rob Lucci as the top black deck, right? Or at least partially black deck in this tournament. So definitely something that is key to keep an eye on. The Bonney team going all the way in that one, but several other Bonnies I feel like in this tournament. We had one right here. We had a couple over here, 3 teams that had a Bonney and also a Yamato over here. A couple different Anels as well. A little bit of Shanks and some other red mix, with Red Purple Luffy being another strong deck that has been revitalized in the OP09 format. Purple Luffy having a couple appearances. Marshall D. Teach, we saw Marshall D. Teach does have some pretty good showing and representation, I feel like, actually in this tournament. Does seem like a kind of spicy play that I really liked in here. But let's look at some deck lists, the actual deck lists that these players played in this tournament. I'll start off with the Bonney list first because we showed this Bonney list in the last video. Very nice to see in here. We didn't see the strength of the 9-drop Shanks from the starter deck, but as we saw in the last one, very, very good card. The most interesting thing about this list specifically in the OP09 format is that not only Basil Hawkins, but also Hody Jones sitting at 2 ofs, prioritizing the carrots. If you don't have your carrots already, might want to be something to get while they're still decently cheap and before they go up in price. Doflamingo, Shanks being the boss monsters alongside Eustace Captain Kid as the primary focuses in this tournament, but the Hody Jones still an excellent option, just a great green card as well. Cavendish being so nice in this deck. We saw it showcased in both of the matches that it was featured in. Just especially in the matchup against Black Yellow Luffy when the Kuzan is dropped, makes it a little bit more tricky. And speaking of the Black Yellow Luffy, we've got the Black Yellow Luffy list right here in this one. Pretty much the standard Black Yellow Luffy list. I think a couple of the surprise cards that you could see in this list is the 2-2 split of Makino and Ivankov, right? Ivankov, not something that we see a ton of, but I think maybe kind of seeing the West a little bit, right? Seeing how the West plays Kuzan. Kuzan, a very, very popular card in the West in Black Yellow Luffy, and is now starting to be played, I feel like, in the East. I feel like I never really saw Kuzan before in the East tournaments outside of this one that we had right now. And so maybe something that you want to continue to hold on to as you start building for OP09. But I mean, pretty much if you had the deck already, you've got the deck as it continues. It's pretty much solidified into like these sort of sets of 64-ish cards, right, to choose from in this. The 2-2 ace being an option as well in this deck. I know sometimes the ace is the in the deck or not in the deck kind of card, and even sometimes I think even Jackson Huang, Clyde TCG, was playing a 1-1 line, I believe, when he went ahead and won that regional. So with the ace, so definitely a couple different ways that you can play this deck in shape of the meta, but a very good deck overall. As I was mentioning, one of my top 4 decks right now in the OP09 format. But that's going to be all for me. Thank you so much for watching. Super appreciate that you went around in this tournament. Check out some of the other videos that I've got on the channel as well. We've got a lot of stuff as of late and a lot more stuff coming. The store regional live stream, I'm going to be cutting that up next and being re-uploading that, right, with just the games, just like I did for the first store regional that we had over the summer. So get excited for that if you didn't get to tune in. And then I've got some other things as well. I don't know if you can, well, can I get the full screen? If you're a fan of just trading card games in general, I've been gracious enough to get a couple different card games, some companies sending me some different card games to review and make content over. So a little bit of variety stuff coming as well here soon, especially if you saw my Union Arena live stream that I did the other day through the Eggman tournament. So thank you again so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you tomorrow, or, well, it may be tomorrow. I don't know when the next video is coming out, but it'll be soon. If you missed the rest of this tournament, want to check out the other games, which I recommend were very exciting, right? Purple Luffy, Black Purple Luffy, Doflamingo, Bonney, another Bonney game. That can be found in the tournament playlist that I've got in here as well. And you can check out the rest of my commentary in the big giant commentary playlist that I've got on the channel. Anyways, I'm done yapping. I got to get ready for some stuff. I'll see you later.